finding that right now is a great time to kind of get people some ideas, some thoughts on their business, so they can actually go and act on it, as opposed to what happens a lot of times during the year. You're in the middle of it. I do consults with people, in June, and it turns into a conversation about their termite issue, not really about what they want to do to improve their business. So again, that's kind of the theory behind this class. What I tell you to do is, with your first page, hold this out. I'm going to actually give you guys a list of books. I think that would be very helpful to read throughout the year or to listen to. So just hold that out, and I'll hit where these books come into play with your business plan. Do you guys read books? Listen to books? As realtors, we have a great opportunity. We're in our car a lot, for driving to appointments and things like that. Get Audible. Audible is a great resource. It's relatively inexpensive, and you can listen to books on tape. Sometimes sitting down and actually having time to read a book can be difficult. But actually listening to a book when you're in the car, I think is much better than listening to sports talk radio or listening to Rush or whoever.
Really?
Yes, much more productive. It's just your mindset. It gets you thinking about things. Even 5 minutes of a book on tape, I think, will spark some interest and just kind of get you to a quiet place in your mind that kind of brings out some creativity and things you want to do.
Tom Ferry and Brian Buffini also have podcasts that all that's available free.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So what's his name? Zig Ziglar talked about the Auto University, and auto meaning your car. So you basically have a university in your car, especially for salespeople to take advantage of. All right, moving along. Basically, it's the third page in here. This is irrefutable fact number 1. All right, D, give me the irrefutable fact number 1.
Real estate sales can be a get-rich business.
You guys believe that?
Of course.
That's why we do it, right?
Right. So it doesn't say in here it's a get-rich-fast business. It doesn't say, it's a get-rich for no money down business. It is a get-rich business. It's just, if we move on to the next page, kind of dovetails into this, is a real estate career in real estate offers the genuine opportunity to generate an unlimited income. Unlike typical corporate or government jobs, no one dictates how much money you can or will earn each year. As a real estate agent, you can make as much money as you have the passion to make by focusing on the right activities. It's definitely one of the best careers in the world for people possessing unlimited passions. However, there's a dark side to this, and this is in paragraph 2. You can work 80 hours a week and earn absolutely nothing, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And then the next paragraph down, one of the key differences between top earners and the rest of the real estate herd is that top earners intentionally move towards productive, right, and stay away from busy. They are keenly aware that very few activities are classified as dollar productive, and as a result, choose to focus their time, energy, and efforts on those tasks that generate the highest amount of income per hour, right? There's busy, and then there's productive, right? They both look very similar, right? They keep you away from home, right? They keep you worried at night, but sometimes it's what you actually put your efforts towards actually produces results at the end of the day. Typically, busy work produces a very low kind of income at the end of the day. Productive work, higher. That's easier said than done, and that's what we're going to work on kind of in this course. So why do we work? Top line on page 5. Why do you guys work? Yes, good one. That's it, in a nutshell. Sometimes we get confused with why we work. Sometimes it's to improve the world, to create, opportunities for homeowners to buy homes, things like that. That's all sometimes a byproduct, but Vince, you nailed it on the head. We really work to make money, because if we had a gazillion dollars, probably we wouldn't be doing this, unless you were super passionate about it, but we work to make money. So with that said, our biggest limiting asset in our life and in our business is time, right? We only have 24 hours. And really, our 24 hours gets divided up into 3 areas. Into our self, that's our spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional. Our relationships, our spouse, kids, family, friends. And then work, finances. So this is the Kiyosaki quadrant. Either you're an employee, you're self-employed, you're a business owner, or you're an investor. But all of those are going to take some time at some point to create income. So let's move on to page 6. This is a breakdown of Robert Kiyosaki. He's Rich Dad Poor Dad. You guys read that book before? Probably. What's that? Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yep. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yep, that's on Audible. Yep. So he kind of works through the progression of really what it means as a income earning areas, and there's really 4 areas. One is an employee. This is low cash, high time, right? This is what it means to take a 9 to 5. Then you move into self-employed, and this is where most realtors reside. So you're working for yourself, you're developing your own systems. The funds required are typically you, right? It's a lot of your time. It's a high cash reward business, but it's also a high time business. It eats a lot of time because it's on you. And then you'll see this arrow going up, and right on that arrow, right above it, write systems above that arrow. Yep, so you'll see this arrow going from S to B. On page 6. Yep, that's a breakdown. So you'll see this arrow going from S to B, and write systems above that. So what happens is a lot of self-employed people want to make that leap to business owner. Basically, that's when they start leveraging people. They bring people onto their team. They bring in a photographer, a stager, sometimes a buyer's agent, sometimes an admin, sometimes a marketing coordinator, sometimes a runner. But without systems, I find that most agents wind up making that leap kind of too early, or they wind up bringing someone on and then having no direction for that person. The person comes on, and then they expect through osmosis that that person will learn how to do the business. So that's why it's important to have systems to link between a self-employed, where most of us reside, into if you want to get into kind of a business owner, that aspect. The next line down is investor. And in the real estate industry, in all honesty, it's very tough to move from a real estate practitioner, not from a real estate buying investment property, but from I'm a real estate agent, I help represent people in listing and selling their property. It's hard to move completely away from the business and be an investor and having a team run your real estate business. It's doable, but I think if you can get to the business owner status, I think that's a very important key aspect. And a lot of times, even if you're not going to grow a big team, anything like that, the systems you have are really important, because it allows you to delegate. Even if you're just delegating to yourself, it allows you to really understand your business. All right, moving on to page 7. All right, thoughts rule the world for the simple reason that thoughts determine our feelings and actions. We can think ourselves into happiness or into a deep depression. We can think ourselves into health or illness. We can think ourselves into peace of mind or raging fury. We can think ourselves into a narrow, limiting world characterized by procrastination and paralysis, or we can think ourselves into noble, creative life, into a noble, creative life and the actions that give it shape and substance. So a lot of this is our thoughts rule the day, right? And sometimes we look at successful people, and I look at this as almost like throwing a rock into a pond. What happens a lot of times is all you see is those outer ripples. You see what people are doing, but you don't realize that it usually started with that rock, that thought in their head that kind of created their actions and then became their beliefs and their habits, and then moved all the way out to what you see today and what they're doing in their business. Most people don't progress because they place limits on themselves, which usually shows up in the form of excuses as to why they can't do stuff. And that's a big issue we all have. We wind up putting limits. The next page is, we're going to skip this, but it talks a little bit about limited beliefs and unlimited beliefs. And a lot of times you can take your limited beliefs, what you believe is a truth, a limiting truth. I can't do this. And if you just take the can't out and put in can, sometimes gives you the ability to free your mind to actually do things. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. mean, I think you always want to be optimistic about things. I think
I'm
it,
a half full kind
Yeah.
of guy.
absolutely.
My
Yeah.
wife tends to be half empty.
Yeah. Right. And we'll get into that because I think it's also it's easier said than done, but I think you've got to focus on what your ultimate goal is. It helps you kind of decide what's really important and what you really should care about. And then what you should care about is half full or half empty. Because sometimes we care too much about things that don't matter. You know, we waste a lot of energy, good and bad. You know, that we have so much. I'm reading a great book right now. It's the what is it? The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, and it talks about because we're bombarded now by so much in the atmosphere of what we need to do, how we need to do it, that we're constantly giving too many Fs about things that we really shouldn't. So it's really boiling it down to what's important. All right, so we're going to skip page 8. So keeping an open mind. This is page 9. Keep an open mind. So are you learning-based or ignorance-based? So learning-based folks, I know what I know, and there's more to know. If you're not learning-based, you're ignorance-based. So ignorance-based folks, it's I know what I know, and I'll ignore everything else, or I know it all. And we run into a lot of people like this throughout our day. And there's very successful people who actually can be ignorance-based. You know, they're just not growing, but they can be successful. But I think I think most people fall into the quadrant that you've got to be growing based. And growing to the next level requires kind of jumping back up to the top. It says growing to your next level requires that you're doing something beyond what you're currently doing. That's adding something, right? Doing what you're currently doing more effective, efficient. Being more effective and improving efficiency levels, and that's improving your business, right? So you're either adding stuff, improving stuff you're already doing, or leveraging others for your business. That's developing, right? So that's bringing people in who are helping you with the things that either you don't have the time or the skill to do. So adding, improving, or developing. Those are the 3 areas of growth. All 3 require an open mind and willingness to learn. Since growth requires change, the key is becoming and remaining learning based. You know, and you've got to keep an open mind. And we'll talk about this later on. The one thing you always have to keep in mind, though, is that sometimes we get too much influence, though. That keeping an open mind is good, but you also have to realize what you really want. And when you understand what you really want, keeping an open mind is a good thing. If you don't know what you want, keeping an open mind will give you, decision ADD. You just don't know what to choose because there's so much influence out there and so many ideas and so many things you can do. You wind up doing something one week, it's kind of painful, then you switch gears and do something else, and it didn't get results after 2 weeks, so you do something else. But when you really understand what you want, being learning-based is the best way. All right, page 10. All right, so on the right-hand side, so for growth, learning to grow, it clarifies your choices, helps you take action, helps you build habits once you're taking action on a consistent basis. Once you built habits, it shapes your character, shapes who you are, which determines your destiny and controls your legacy. And this is one of the critical things we look at in our Momentum agent development program is clarifying choices. This is equated to like our consulting, our initial consultation and coaching on the front end. Taking action, this is the training that you do. These are the things you decide to focus on to help you getting better at the business. And then once you're actually taking action, that starts building your habits. And then you get some accountability, right? That you're doing things consistently and figuring out what are the best things to do. Learning new and irrelevant things may be entertaining, but it doesn't increase the bottom line. What increases the bottom line is your willingness to study, practice, and implement the vital activities of a thriving agent. A willingness to focus only on the basics. It's not about gaining an understanding of the basics, it's about mastering the basics. I think Vince Lombardi had a great quote about, good teams don't just do the basics, they do the basics great. kind of constantly studying and practicing, not adding on all these different silver bullets. It's actually doing things and practicing them. Alrighty. Moving on to the next page. This is kind of a demonstration of kind of what mastery looks like, a pathway. What happens most times is you hear the material for the first time, you have an aha moment. You go out and you try to implement it, and sometimes it doesn't work. So then what you do is, what a lot of folks do is they go back and they try to learn something new because that idea they had that sparked some interest didn't work initially. So they go try to learn something new. They get an aha moment. They try it, maybe with some mild success. Then they quit, and then they try something else. Actually getting to mastery means having those aha moments, studying it, practicing it, acting on it, and then repeating, relearning the information, figuring out where you can get better, practicing it, implementing it, and then reevaluating it again and going around. I mean, it kind of goes through a progression. And that's one of the things. If you look at the bottom, it says talent is overrated. Mastery is simply about time on a task over time. 10,000 SPAR hours required. SPAR, study, practice, action, reinforce. So on your book list, Talent is Overrated. This is a great book. Talent is Overrated. So what they do is they wind up giving you examples of what in popular culture we consider virtuosos, right? People who are just amazing at their craft. And everyone assumes, oh, they were born that great. They were born a salesman. They were born a comedian. They were born a violin master. And what they found is that when they look back, is a lot of these folks worked very hard. They had to do the actions and the practice, the studies, to get better at their task. And there's many examples of that, and it's kind of reinforcing the fact that talent is overrated, that people put so much into talent. That means that kind of gives us the green light that any of us can achieve a higher level if we're committed to that. The other is this 10,000 hours. This is from Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. You guys read Malcolm Gladwell before? Okay. He kind of takes something that seems so obvious to everyone and takes a flip look at it, a different look at it. And it's called Outliers. Outliers. Yep. By Malcolm Gladwell. Outliers. And outliers. So in data, outliers are those data points that are outside of, you'll see these, kind of fat data points, and then you'll see these outliers in some of these graphs. When he starts looking at those outliers, how are these things showing up, right? Why are they showing up? And it's a good example of looking at real life examples and taking a different look at them. But he has a chapter on there about 10,000 hours. He looks at, what's his name? Not Paul Allen, who's Bill Gates. And just the work that he put in to basically to get where he's at. And a lot of it, he boiled it down to, he had access to a computer lab at the time when it was very difficult to get to a computer lab. His mom actually lied for him and got him in there so that he could actually practice on these computers. But what happens is sometimes people take parts of the story and they only look at his end success and say, he's a genius. That's why he did this. But you really got to look back and see that it was all that extra work he did in the beginning. All right. So why do people succeed? They don't quit. That's good. What are the reasons? Why do people succeed?
Focused.
Yep. Well, if you don't quit but you're doing the wrong thing, you can still fail, right? I mean, I think don't quitting is a very good thing. And along Lori's lines, focused. In the line that it's basically they intend to, right? They intend to. They're intentional about it. Right. Right. Because they're focused on the right things. because you can be very successful at doing, you know, non-productive things, but at the end of the day, it doesn't lead to success. And there's success is basically it's kind of two-dimensional. There's internal and external, right? Internally, you have to be motivated, right? Externally, you have to have the tools and resources around you to succeed. And this breaks down. This is a nice little quadrant of what success kind of is in a simple graph. So the top eye. So if we're going north, south, northeast, south, and west. So the north eye is intentional. East P is proactive. South U is unintentional. And then the west I is inactive. So let's go to the northwest quadrant, and that is intentional but inactive, content. And unfortunately, I do a lot of recruiting, and I run into a lot of agents who are in this quadrant. They're content. They want it, but they're not doing things to move forward towards it. Basically, talk is cheap. Basically, they don't want it that bad, in all honesty. If they did, they would probably move towards it. The bottom part is the failure. That's someone who they don't want it, and they're not going to move forward towards it. They're, we find a lot of people hang their licenses in real estate who are of this area, but they're not very successful. There's also, I find people in this quadrant too, and these are ones I stay away from, because we were actually talking about this earlier. Dee and I were being frustrated. This is someone who's accidental. They don't want it, but they are working on moving towards it. They don't have that internal motivation. But they are working on things, so they become frustrated. The best person is the top northeast quadrant, and that is intentional and proactive. Basically, I want it, and I'm moving forward towards it. All right. Moving on to page 13. All right, so, and this is important, this progression. You have to start with the intentional to move into the proactive. The intentional part, again, this is your internal motivation. So you got to define your aspirations. What do you want? You must be specific, right? The second part is creating a plan. Goals, plans, strategies, GPS for achievement. Once you have that aspiration, then you've kind of charted your course. Where do we want to go? Then at that point is the proactive part of it. This is more external. You basically have to implement activities, right, to move towards it. So consistent activities, right, or consistent action, meaning doing things on a regular and consistent basis. It's pretty simple. Efficient action, meaning that because we only have 24 hours, that we're focusing on the most effective actions and doing it efficiently. We're not wasting a lot of time. And then proficient action, meaning we're working on getting better at these actions, right? The work we do within these actions, we're constantly trying to retool and get better at it. And then the fourth part is being accountable. So focusing on progression, looking at some matrix, looking at ways to improve our business, identifying strengths and weaknesses, and expectations start turning into reality. And it's very important because if you look at this, let's say you flip this chart upside down, and you started with actions. You started looking at what actions do I need to be successful. What actions do I need to do to be successful? And then you started becoming accountable for those actions. And then you tried to find an inspiration after you found it. It doesn't work in that progression. It's very hard to find that, those actions that you're going to actually do if you don't understand what you really want and how you want to get there. All right.
Joe,
Yeah.
in terms of, planning, give me an example, someone that has, defined their aspirations and what that looks like. What do people put down in writing in terms of an aspiration? Do they do it in terms of a dollar figure? This is the amount I want to make this year.
Yeah, and we're gonna delve into that.
Okay.
Yep, you're stepping a couple steps ahead,
Sorry.
which is perfect, because kind of give you a little bit of a sneak peek is typically what happens is your aspiration usually becomes something that's internal that you really want. It could be, vacation home. It could be something kind of, tangible like that. Needing to put the kids through school. That winds up bringing down to, well, what's it going to cost to do that, right? And then it becomes a real dollar figure. And then it becomes, okay, what are the, basically create benchmarks. How many transactions do I need to do to get to that point? Once I understand how many transactions I need to do, I need to understand, okay, what things do I need in my business to get to that point? I need to get better at open houses, or I need to add on a farm. Okay, what skills and actions do I need to take to get better at doing that? And then you get into, how many appointments I need to set, how many set appointments do I need to create? Basically, if it takes 10 appointments to get 7 listing appointments, and we'll go through that whole progression. Yep. Page 14. So the way this reads is like this. So we have these 3 boxes, right? Then another 3. Really reads, it goes this way, and then it comes back around. So when I walk through this, it'll make a little more sense. So it's creating abundant success. So you need a complete development program. So it starts off with the consulting. Next step is creating that goals, plans, and strategies. That gives you direction in your business, right? That's your GPS. It's literally and figuratively your GPS for your business. Once you have that direction, then you look at, okay, what are areas I need to train on, right? What are areas I'm deficient in my business that I need to add and get better at? That helps you develop more knowledge and skills. Now you got this knowledge and skills. What do you do with it? What must you do with your knowledge? You've got to act on it. Correct. You have to act on it. Then what happens is you need some accountability. That creates your discipline, right? Once you understand that these are, you're accountable to someone or, something, then it creates some discipline, creates focus on what is most important. Then it gets into masterminding. And again, masterminding is all the way down here at the bottom for a very good reason. Because sometimes what happens is people put masterminding up top. They start getting other people's opinions on what they should do in their business. And they wind up getting, because they're not sure what they want, they get swayed one way or another. And sometimes people are throwing out magic bullets. People are emailing you about the greatest marketing technology that's here today, and you only have 15 minutes to make a decision because I got someone else on the other line who wants that zip code, right? Without putting masterminding at the end is perfect because you've got your idea in place. Now what you're doing is you've got an anvil. You're taking the masterminding and you're kind of banging the masterminding against it to make sure that your plan's great. If your plan isn't solidified, masterminding will destroy your plan. Right? Getting too many opinions about where you should be without you understanding internally what I really want. Once you go through that masterminding process, getting outside opinions and getting some outside influence, it helps reinforce the things that you're doing. And then that creates some support. You've got some accountability with that. And all of that leads to success. All right. I'm going to take a sidebar here, and this is, we're going to get into Start With Why. I'll play a quick video. This is from a TED Talk, and this is a book called Start With Why.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. Sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and the figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
All right. So that's a great book he's got called Start With Why. And actually, it's a book. And he does a TED Talk on this as well. That's a shortened version of his TED Talk, Simon Sinek. And he uses a great example of, in today's perfect day for this is Martin Luther King. He talks about why did Martin Luther King succeed where other great orators couldn't. He knew he had to inspire people. He couldn't just give great speeches and to move a country. He had to actually get people involved. And there were other people who were doing the exact same thing he was doing. He just was able to basically get to the why. He understood his why. I mean, it's, you have the I Have a Dream speech is a perfect example of someone getting to the souls of people to understand why they're doing what they're doing. So you've got to have that vision in your business as to why you want what you want and why you're doing what you're doing. And on this page, it's what do you want? And this is on page 15. So what do you want is easy, right? Because most people can say, what do you want? I want to go to Hawaii, right? So, but I'm fearful of flying, so I'm never going to go. It's all of a sudden, it's like, when you put an obstacle in the way of that, what you want, depends on how quickly people will give up. Then it falls into kind of paragraph 2, which is, how badly do you want it? All aspirations begin as wants, right? However, wanting something isn't enough. Therefore, your wants must evolve if you expect them to be realized, right? So there's 4 stages of aspiration. So there's a want. So you define something, you talk about it, but talk is cheap, right? You can always say you want something, but until it comes down to, well, you got to get up at 7:30 in the morning to get it, I say till 7:35, maybe tomorrow. And then there's 2 is desire, where you start moving towards it as long as it's easy and convenient, right? Okay, well, maybe I'll wake up 5 minutes earlier, but don't ask me to do anything else. It's got to be easy and convenient and comfortable. Where we find the aspirations really come into play is when you get passion behind them. You're willing to suffer, and suffer is a pretty big word, but basically you're willing to get uncomfortable for it. So what are some things you guys are doing in your business right now that feel uncomfortable?
Clients that I should have contacted years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. Are some good?
I know some are really good, and
Okay.
actually more are good than bad. But takes that one uncomfortable one. It's like,
Yeah.
you really messed me up. Oh, I did. What?
Yeah. What are other things you guys are doing that feel that you're doing that's uncomfortable in your business right now? No.
There are things that I should be doing, but I'm not
Okay.
doing because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah. Here's when you feel uncomfortable in your business, it's a sign of growth, right? It's one of those things that you need to recognize. It's a good thing, right? Like in running, they talk about pain is fear exiting the body, and it's the same kind of thing. Uncomfortableness is basically growth happening within your business, and that's one thing that sometimes that's why a lot of people shy away from when they hit something uncomfortable in their business. That's why so many people say, I want to do something, right? And they get to that wall and then they turn right back around and they say, I don't know. I don't know if it's that important. And here's another book I'd put on your list. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. And it talks a lot about, the hard path is usually the best path to success. Because the easy path usually, if success is usually found in those hard corners of the world, right? It's the places where other people have dared to go. And the pain you feel usually means you're on the right track. And you've got to be able to grow. The 4th step is obsession. And obsession can be unhealthy, though, because you've seen some people who get obsessed with the goal and they go overboard. And sometimes it can be really detrimental because what happens is they wind up flaming out in a year. They burn themselves out.
That's why I don't run.
Well, and
I would burn myself out.
Yeah.
I know I would.
Yeah. And sometimes people decide that, well, I'm going to run a marathon, and they try running a marathon that day. So they don't pace themselves correctly. So you must be willing to progress to the passionate level. No one is passionate about making money. They're passionate about what money provides, right? Because at the end of the day, it's what this money will get me. Vague aspirations end up in a vast wasteland of wants and desires. So I love this demonstration, and I always try to correct my kids on this. It's the get to versus have to, right? And there's times when I always try to replace words in my vocabulary, and this is one I always try to replace. Is instead of have to, I always try to replace it with get to. Instead of using but, I use and. Things like that. So a great example of this is like you're filling sandbags or you're saving a city. Huh? I don't get it. So someone could be filling sandbags to build a dike to save a city, right? The person who's thinking of this as they're saving a city, they're more inspired. They'll probably do a much better job and have a better mental outlook if they're thinking of it as saving a city, as opposed to the guy who's sitting there going, man, this sucks. I'm just filling sandbags, right? They're doing the exact same task at the lower level, right? They're filling sandbags. But the person who's feeling like they're saving that city, they're going to be much more inspired. And that's what we've got to get to, is get to that mental point to understand it's more than just the day-to-day business we're doing, that we're going towards a bigger goal. So get to, passions, pleasures, we get to embrace it, we get action, it's fulfilling, and it's abundant. All right. Passion links help you endure the temporary pains of being out of your comfort zone, right? Because again, calling, like Dee, you said it's uncomfortable. I've been calling my clients. But you understand that I need to make those calls basically to get to a bigger goal out there. And once you understand it's this bigger goal, some of the day-to-day foibles we run into and issues become so insignificant when it's something so much bigger. All right. I'm not going to do this demonstration. This is defining your financial requirement. But this is looking at placing your funding needs in the following categories. Family expenses, savings accounts, retirement, college funds, early retirement, investments, vacation travel, hobbies, car, home, second home, charity, endowments. These are typically some of our big rocks that we wind up tying our goals to. And once you tie that goal, you create what you're really making all this money to earn or to get or to acquire. Again, we get going back to those smaller day-to-day tasks, filling the sandbags. It becomes very clear that this is something we're working towards. So I'll skip over the sample priority budgets, but I think it's important to create these, understanding what you're going towards. Once you understand that, it'll bring you to page 19. And 19 is your entrepreneur's mantra. So your entrepreneur's mantra is not the Tom Ferry add another zero goal, right? It is actually a true number. It means basically, if your entrepreneur's mantra is 250, and I said, well, what if you made 225? You'd be like, I'd still be stoked. You'd be like, no, that's not your entrepreneur's mantra. It's basically, if you made $1 less than this amount, then you need to get out of the business, right? And you need to understand that number. It's it's like the Mendoza line in baseball. If you bat below this batting average, you cannot be in the major leagues. So you need to know, and this number is tied to basically what your financial goals are. You need to know what that number is, because you need to be driving towards that number. Because if you're not making that number, it usually means you're not taking the actions necessary to create that number. All right. And a lot of times what we do is, in consulting, we'll get to this point with you on a personal level, but I find it's very personal. So for this class, it probably is, it's not appropriate to go over that in depth, but I think you got to get to that point. And that's why I showed that Simon Sinek video. I think it helps. You've got to understand your why you're doing what you're doing. All right, irrefutable fact number 2. All right, real estate sales is basic. Do you guys believe that?
What does that mean?
I don't know. What do you think it means? Yes. Yep.
Very basic. Basic as a person working in a mailroom.
Yep.
Here's all my zip codes, here's my boxes, here's the stack of mail. It's processing.
Yep.
Which means it's not complicated.
Well, I think it can be complicated, but it's also it can be very basic too.
So that means it's not complicated in your language.
Yeah, I mean, because you can create a system, and what we're going to talk about in this in part two is systems that you can put in place to make it much more basic. Because what happens is most agents, the reason why they throw this out here is because a lot of agents are like, hell no, it's not basic. You know, there's a lot of different components to it. There's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of times agents don't understand the structure of the real estate business, so they make it overly complex. Or sometimes what happens is they find great success one day, and the next day they wake up and they try to replicate what they were doing yesterday, and they don't do it, and they find struggles. Things didn't work, and then it becomes really. Then they start feeling like the business is more complex than it really is. So if you have some systems in place, it kind of eliminates a lot of the guesswork out of the business. And it's one of those things that people have gone before you. People have done real estate businesses before and been successful. That you try to find those footprints on the floor. Try to find that structure that's in place already to help you find success. All right, so here's the introduction to some business concepts. And this is what we go through. We're going to go over this on a higher level. And then throughout the Momentum series, throughout the year, we go into this very in-depth. So there's 28 beliefs in the real estate business. There's 3 models. There's 8 functions, 14 responsibilities, 6 ancillary arms, 94 vital activities, $13 productive activities, 14 key performance standards in 24 hours. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Okay, you've made it basic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. All right. So the next page, this is just what I was talking about. This is that ripple effect, I say. Go down to the bottom. On bottom number 2, truths once internalized guide your thinking and thus your behavior. So once you understand some truths in the business, they help guide you down the road as to now that if you really believe this, your actions will follow. So again, those right thoughts will lead to those ripple effects. All right, moving on, page 23. These are the 28 beliefs. This is where we get interactive in the class. So, Mary, we're going to go core entrepreneurial beliefs. Mary, number 1.
There is no growth without discomfort.
D.
I live in a world of abundance.
The market does not and will not determine my income. Whoa.
My only limit is time.
Focus is the key to success.
I reap what I sow.
Success stems from duplicable processes and systems.
Good one.
It is unacceptable for my business to earn $0.
People have lived before me.
Leverage is the key to abundance.
It's win-win or no deal.
Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. Okay, so out of those 12, any thoughts, any objections to any of these? Do you like any of these a lot?
People have lived before me.
So this is a Stoic belief. Again, with the obstacle is the way, they talk a lot about this. People have gone down this path before. So sometimes we sit here and we look at our issues in the real estate industry and we're like, how is this happening to me? I can't believe, I don't know how I'll ever solve this. People have lived before you. There are people thousands of years ago who faced the exact same challenges, sometimes greater, and who've succeeded. So there is a way. Anything else you guys like on this? Or dislike? Or
I reap what I sow.
okay.
I like that.
Yeah, 12 is one of my favorite. We run into a lot. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. All right. Real estate sales beliefs. Let's get into those. Real estate sales can be a get-rich business. Mary, 14.
Real estate sales is basic.
Real estate sales is a task business.
I will not convert 100% of the leads I do not generate.
People will trust and follow only what I can logically and tangibly explain.
It's unacceptable to leave the client's money on the table.
Anything on that? Agree with, disagree with, like a lot, dislike a lot? Yeah, 16 is like that Michael Jordan. You know, you'll miss 100% of the shots you never take. All right, listing beliefs. Homes sell for two reasons: price and exposure. Mary.
Pricing game is all about justification.
Pricing is neighborhood specific.
What's put in motion stays in motion.
Pricing homes is not an exact science.
All right. Anything on that? Agree with? Disagree with? Need clarification?
What's put in motion stays in motion. What's that?
So that's the theory, and you guys have all been here before, where you know in your heart of hearts a house should be listed at 400, right? Seller comes on the market at
475.
all right.
I know I can get close to 5 for it.
They come on at 425, right?
Yeah.
After 3 weeks, they decide to reduce to where they should have been, right?
Right.
Guess what? Does it sell there?
Mm-mm.
No, it usually has to keep going down, and it has to bottom out about 375 before it sells, right? So it's Newton's law in a sense. What's put in motion stays in motion. When you have to reduce, and when it comes to pricing, you typically we know we have to usually go below where we would have been. We originally started here. We know we're going to have to go below that to get it under contract.
There was a incredibly good article in last January's Washington Post that was so good and so specific on this point that I incorporated it into my listing presentation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of it.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
No,
No,
it
so
was last January.
Yeah, and we do. Have you guys gone through the pricing boot camp yet? Some of you guys have.
I have,
Yeah. One of the things we hammer on is pricing. You know, why do homes sell? Two reasons: price and exposure. So, you know, since most buyers are represented by realtors, once it goes in MLS, I mean, don't tell anyone this, but once it goes in MLS, pretty much marketing is pretty much an even playing field, right? There is no secret sauce that's getting anyone major amounts of showing. So once it goes in MLS, it's exposed to the marketplace.
that's how I explain to my client. You're almost selling to other agents.
Yep. And a lot of agents wind up thriving in the marketing end on their in the presentation. They focus all on marketing because they do a ton of it. Some of your bigger teams and agents out there, that's what they sell. But really, the pricing is the way, because you could take, you know, let's say you had a 3-bedroom townhome and only should have sold for $350, right? If you price it at $700,000, but you put it on, you know, in the Washingtonian, you put it in the Washington Post every week, you do a billboard for it, it's still not going to sell at $700,000 just because you expose the hell out of this thing, right? It has to be priced correct, right? No exposure will get anyone to way overprice for a
I
property.
found that piece. It's 5 points. I can read it.
Yeah.
It was Washington Post, January 9th, 2016, Market Trends by McInerney and Associates. They did a study. So the 5 points were: homes whose prices had to be reduced before attracting a buyer were on the market 3 times longer. Sellers of homes with the right initial price were less likely to pay any subsidy, and if they did, it was likely to be smaller. Homes that sold without a price reduction sold for an average of 98.4% of list price. Homes that came on the market too high had to reduce their price by roughly 6% before a buyer was willing to make an offer. And when that offer came in, those sellers had to negotiate a further reduction, ultimately settling at an average of 10% below their original price. I thought that was a great piece.
Yeah.
Consequences of pricing strategy.
Right. And that's beautiful because sellers ask, you know, and they think, what's it hurt? What's it hurt to go to 425? And here you go. Here's what it hurts. Yeah, that's great. The other thing is, you know, pricing homes is not an exact science. And I always tell people 3% of real estate is controlled by God, right? That buyer walked into that house. You have 2 homes on the same street. Buyer walked into that house and wrote an offer on that house and paid way over asking price for that house. You have a house down the street that's comparable. They didn't even show your house. You know, stuff like that happens. Turns out that buyer, her sister lives in the backyard, you know, the adjacent backyard. They had to have that house and only that house, right? They weren't buying any other house. So some of that is you just realize that there is a fudge factor in some of the pricing. Okay, buyer beliefs. 24. Time reveals all. Mary.
Motivated, qualified, and loyal people buy homes.
Having a process reduces the risk that comes with buyers.
If they won't meet me, they're not a buyer.
Buyers deserve my immediate time and attention.
All right. Any thoughts on those questions? Disbeliefs?
What does that mean? 27. If they won't meet me, they're not a buyer.
So basically, and a lot of this is big on in our buyer conversion. It's big on actually setting a meeting and having a buyer consultation before we start our basically product. So if you think about the buyers are typically drawn to agents based on product, not process, right? We thrive in process and service, right? And what happens is typically buyers are attracted by product. If we only service the product end of it, okay, I'll show you homes. Once we lose our advantage and we're not showing them the homes quick enough, or we're not following the product, then our value's over here. It's not really in the product, that we lose kind of our effectiveness with the buyer. So it's always, if a buyer won't meet with you, they're really not a buyer. If you want to have a consultation with them and explain how you do your business and how you do it differently, and why, if there is a struggle on the product end, why they should still always want to work with you. If they won't meet with you to discuss that, then they're potentially not a real buyer. With that said, each of you do your business differently. Sometimes what we do is we go out and we'll do some product first to kind of gain the relationship, but you got to do process at some point. And I'd say as early in the process as possible, talk to them about how you do your business as a consultant for them, as opposed to a taxi cab driver and a door opener. Make sense?
Yes.
Time reveals all.
Let me ask you this.
Yep.
Will you show them a house before you have your consultation?
Will I?
Yes. I'm asking you.
I will. Personally, I will.
But that may be only one time, or one opportunity for them to do that before. After that, you have to have a consultation.
Because sometimes in person, I want to make sure that if I'm going to get any resistance from them to do a consultation, that it's not based on the fact that it just looks like I'm trying to get them to come in and sign some paperwork kind of thing. I want to meet them and figure out, is this something that we're going to work together with?
Is it going to be a working relationship?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it something you can help them with?
Yep. And it's someone who I really, is this someone who I want to work with as well?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then
Sometimes you don't find out about their motivation
until you do the consultation. Once you do the consultation, you'll find. Well, if you ask all the, and again, through the buyer conversion class, we teach a process to figure out what get their motivation out. If they won't do these steps, again, time reveals all is one of those lines, is that you'll figure out if they're a good buyer or not if you haven't done the right process. If you haven't pre-qualified them well enough, they'll tell you if they're a real buyer or not. It may take a year for you to figure out, once they buy a house with someone else, that they really weren't your buyer. But I think you got to have a process and a way to vet your buyers as well, because buyers will eat your time. They are time intensive, right? But that's the reason why you only have 24 hours, so you need to make sure you're investing that time in the right people.
Okay, now, is it necessary for them to come into my office, or can I do my buyer consultation in their house, home, or anywhere?
Anywhere. Yep. Starbucks, their house. You could even do the consultation at it, meet them at a house and do the consultation right there. Yep. Exactly.
The consultation is the most important thing.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Does it make sense, Mary? Do you agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
I just think that people have to see for themselves. They don't listen.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it's.
And then they feel that I don't know. You don't want to be condescending, but you want to get to the meat. In other words, if you tell them what they don't want to hear,
Well, and here's where I think you need to flip that around, is that instead of always telling, they need to tell you what they want. You need to get to the bottom of their motivation. Once you understand what their motivation is, then when you're going through the process with the buyer, if what you're presenting to them and what situations you're giving them are meeting their motivation and they're not going for it or they're not proceeding forward, then you know that really wasn't true. That they're not really
They're
motivated.
a lie.
It's a great time to find it out, though.
Yeah.
It's a great time to find it out before you spend a lot of time and energy and give to a person that you knew wasn't really worth. And yeah, they don't like to hear a lot of it. I mean, I lost a listing 2 months ago because they didn't want to hear about the pricing.
Yeah.
And guess what? They had been longtime clients, and it's actually okay that I will never work with them again. I mean, it really is. It's a good time to find out on that first or second step before you're like years invested into this person, and then all of a sudden you do this business for them, and they're like, no.
And like just like this start with why. If you understand their motivation, right? Because people tell you things that they want. They understand what they want. They want a good deal. They want a house with 3 bedrooms. But if their true motivation, is to have a place for their family that meets these certain criteria, and you understand that very well, when you're presenting them with product, a lot of times it's getting a good deal sometimes goes out the window when it's the right product for them. But you got to understand that. You got to be able to go back to that. Hey, this is what you told me when we did our consultation. These were the things that were critically important. We're finding those things. So why are you hesitating? Because there may be something else that's hesitating, that's creating hesitation.
Yeah.
All right. So 28 beliefs. There's 3 models here in the real estate industry for us as agents. There's an economic model, there's an operational model, and then there's an organizational model. This is page 24. So 3 models. We'll delve into these 3 models on page 25. All right, so do me a real big favor here. On page 25, it says, like the middle bar says real estate sales beliefs, and then the bottom bar says listing beliefs, right? That's supposed to read, the middle bar is supposed to read operational beliefs, and then instead of listing beliefs, it's supposed to read organizational beliefs. Okay, so the economic model, what does it include? It includes your entrepreneur's mantra, right? I can't make $1 less than this amount. It's your commission rate schedule, which is on the next page. It's your transaction benchmark, and it's your financial statements, your expense budget, your balance statement, your income statement, right? That creates your economic model. That's kind of this is how much money I need to make, and this is how I make that money. I'm sorry, not how I make that money, but this is what needs to be made. The operational is the how, right? So these are your real estate sales priorities: the lead generation, the lead conversion, and then the lead servicing. Brian Buffini talks about this a lot. It's a 3-legged stool, right? You've got lead generation, right? That's creating the lead, popping it up. Hey, I'm interested in potentially listing my house. The lead conversion is actually doing the listing appointment and getting the listing. And then there's servicing. It's getting it on the market and getting it under contract and sold. There's lead generation strategies. Those are the prospecting and marketing. There's lead conversion. That's working with buyers and sellers, doing the listing conversion or the buyer conversion presentations. And then there's servicing strategies. That's basically supporting the clients and improving your systems. At the bottom of this is the organizational beliefs. So you've got to have an organizational chart, and we'll go into that. Even if it's just you, this is who does the business. Even if you fill all of the C roles within your company plus any other role, it's good to know who does what. So at some point, if you ever want to bring people into your business or delegate, you know what can be delegated, right? It's a chunk of your business. You almost have a manual, and you just say, here it is. Here's your manual. This is how you do it, right? Far too often, on an organizational point of view, we do everything, so we just assume I got it up here, right? And if we ever want to bring anyone into our business to help us, you wind up having to stop what you're doing, training someone kind of off the top of your head, thinking this is what you do, and hope that they get it. And then you go out and do the business, and then hope you come back and hope that they got what you told them you think you told them to do. And this is where a lot of agents tell me they're terrible at managing people. And what I typically say is, show me your operational manual. And they don't have one. And I say, I think you're being harsh on yourself, being a terrible leader. But where I'll be harsh on you is that you haven't given me what your organization looks like. And until you figure out what your organization looks like, you can't tell if you're a good leader or not. Okay. So economic model. There's basically 3 types of economic models: a high commission, high volume, low commission, high volume, or a high commission, low volume strategy. Most real estate businesses are low margin, high volume businesses. So the basic economic premise is low margin times high volume equals high revenue. You take that high revenue, you minus low expenses, and that equals high profit. That's it in a perfect world. So how do you calculate your transaction benchmarks? Because you want to know, so we talked on the previous page about your mantra, your commission rate, and also your transaction benchmarks. So how do you create your transaction benchmarks? How many deals do I need this year to hit that number? Again, if your entrepreneur's mantra is 150K, can't make a dollar less than that or I've failed. How many transactions do I need? So you take that 150, you add in your operating expenses, okay? 2016, I spent $15,432. You add it together. You divide that number by your average commission rate. That gives you the volume required. And then you take that volume and you divide it by your average sales price. That'll give you the number of transactions you're going to need to do to hit your entrepreneur's mantra number, that 150K. Make sense? The next page, this is actually a really good one. Just to have on hand. It could all be 6s or 3s. It could vary. So this is your listing department commission rate and your buyer department commission rate. And this is actually very helpful if you ever get called to the floor on what you charge someone or what how you did your business. If you stick to this, I mean, this gives you a really good gauge as to how you do your business. Because sometimes we do different percentages for different types of properties. And it's good to know that ahead of time. The other thing I tell you is the bottom lines on both of these: fee for service, your hourly rate. You should know your hourly rate off the top of your head if you ever have to throw it out there. Because again, what's that? Priceless. Right. Because there are times when you may need to use your hourly rate for like a FSBO or a client has a special situation. So I would understand what that number is. Okay, so we did economic model. Now we're moving into operational. So operational is the what. Okay, so top line, prospecting, right? We prospect by expired withdrawals, FSBOs, open houses, our sphere, and farming, right? We generate leads, so out of those areas, and you can also put like internet into that. We don't talk a lot about internet prospecting just because it's kind of what we're looking at is sweat equity versus check equity. Internet we look at is check equity. Once you stop cutting that check, those lead sources go away. So we're looking at kind of the lead sources that you can develop on your own, save a little bit of money on, but they're yours. And they last down the road. Because again, once you stop writing that check to Zillow, Zillow cuts the leads off, you get no more residual effect from those leads. Okay, so out of these prospecting tools, what they're trying to do is generate leads. Generate 3 different types of leads. New leads, right? People you've never met before. Repeat leads, these are people who you've done business with before, And then referral is people who you know referring people to you, right? Pretty simple. 3 different types of leads. Those leads are going to basically fall into one of 2 buckets: a seller bucket or a buyer bucket. Potentially renters too, but we're talking really just the sales part of this. So those sellers turn into listings, right? And those buyers turn into contracts or buyers in your car. And what happens is we've got to have service So we service the leads. We have client care systems. What do we do when we get a listing on the market? What do we do when we work with a buyer? A whole list of things. What happens is when we have those clients, we wind up doing marketing, right? We have yard signs, we have home ads online and whatnot. We do just listed cards, just sold cards. We do stuff online. We do stuff on Facebook. And that regenerates more leads, right, from our referral. So it's kind of this circle. Here's the one thing. HGTV does not show this top line, right? You look at all these $1 million listing agent shows, all they show is the client servicing and the kind of some of the marketing. They never show the hard work. And that's like the tip of the, what they're showing is the tip of the iceberg. Because where the money's made in the business is all below the surface. It's those daily phone calls, right? It's the things that you're uncomfortable doing most cases. Most agents thrive well in the client servicing end of the business. When I talk to agents, especially talk to agents about, new agents getting into the business. And it's like, well, why are you becoming a real estate agent? I love looking at homes. I love working with people. Most of them, when it gets down to, I'm like, well, what have you done in the past to generate leads? Have you done any kind of sales? Have you had to ask for business before? And that's the hard part. And that's what I always caution people is that's where the money's made in this business is the lead generation and the lead conversion. And that doesn't get publicized. I must say, like you guys seen Glenn Ross, the movie? Yeah. It's all about the leads, right? And it's so true. That's like it. That's the nitty gritty. That's like the dark side of it is that lead generation. Yes, exactly. But on TV they don't talk about that. They don't show you what it takes. So I just kind of laugh about that. That when people talk to me about those shows, I'm always like, I always try to explain to them like, it's really my hardest part of the day with my real estate business is generating business. It's not the servicing. The servicing, most agents can do a very good job. Sorry, but most anyone can do a good job servicing a client who's willing to pay you a lot of money. It's actually generating that business on the front end. All right, so this is kind of a pitch for Momentum. Lead generation classes, we do 6 lead generation classes: expired, FSBO, open house, marketing, and referral. We do lead conversion, so this is when you're actually at your appointment. Listing conversion, listing objections, and then pricing boot camp. Those 3 are all under the seller header, right? In theory, if you do a great job on your listing conversion, you won't need any listing objection handling, right? Because they just sign. But typically, you need some listing objections. What are typical listing objections you guys come up with? Price? Right, length of listing. And what's the other big one that sellers sometimes object to? Commission, right. There's not after all these years in real estate, sellers have not created a lot of new objections, right? So if you know what these objections are and you anticipate them and you know how to handle them, it's not rocket science. It's basic, right? But it sometimes feels like rocket science because you're being, kind of new problems are coming at you and maybe you've never experienced them before. You haven't experienced it for a long time. And then you're like, oh crap. Oh my gosh, like they're asking for my commission. A lot of times they're just asking because their uncle told them they should ask. But you got to know how to handle it. And then the pricing boot camp, we go really in depth with a different way of pricing properties. And again, a lot of the Momentum stuff, it's to create a differentiation between you and the regular agent that's out there. Because in all honesty, there's 1 million realtors out there, and now there's over 1 million realtors. Most of them are horrible, right? So you are getting lumped in with these people. So you got to show how you're different. And then the buyer conversion, we talked about that. And then there's business development classes. Today you guys are in this real estate sales perspectives. We have a leverage summit. Leverage summit is actually how do you bring people into your business to help leverage you. So if you're looking at getting to that next step and actually building systems so that you can hire people out to help you with your business, leverage helps you with that. And then activities management. This is, some people say, oh, that's time management. Nope, you can't manage time, right? 24 hours, seconds tick away. There's no management of time. It slips through your fingers. like the sands of the hourglass, right? But what you can do is, with your time that you're investing in the real estate, what activities you do during that time, right? Alrighty. So lead generation. This is kind of an example of lead generation plan. So in the momentum courses, we try to give you some tips on things. And what this looks like is, all right, there's so many things. Let's say you want to do open house, right? Right? You want to do an open house effectively. So there's a lot of things you could want to know how to do an open house, right? There's a lot of things you could do for your open house. And for your open house, there's a lot of things you could have in your open house. What we try to focus on is, based on this goal of what you want to accomplish, is taking this triangle. Because there's only certain things you're really going to need to know. There's only certain things you're going to need to do, and there's only certain things you're going to need to have. And we try to focus just on these quadrants, right? As opposed to trying to know everything, do everything, and have everything to make the most effective open house. There's usually certain things, if you just boil it down, to help you reach your goal. So again, we go through this in each class. Each class has the same kind of structure for lead generation, of really focusing on a couple things. For instance, like having the right script. I mean, there's a million open house scripts out there, but a lot of times what it is just, let's focus on a couple of these, get really good at those, right? And use them, right? See what worked with that script, come back, re-practice it, work with a dialogue buddy. Things you need to have. Obviously, you can have a lot of different things for your open house. If you wanted to have a barbecue at your open house, you could do that. But what we'll try to do is focus on the things that are most effective. All right, lead conversion, similar thing. You got the same exact thing, know, do, and have. That's on page 30. And then 31. So a real estate operational model. This is one of my favorite pages because I think this is one that kind of sheds some light on the business. There's 8 positions of a real estate business. The most dollar productive activities are a listing specialist, a buyer specialist, and a team leader. So listings and buyers, and then the team leader sits in the middle. Most of you guys fill all 3 roles, right? But those are the highest dollar productive activities. Then there's administrative positions. There's the listing coordinator, the closing coordinator, the marketing coordinator, the administrative assistant, and the runner. And here's the deal is that, 75% of this model is administrative. And that's why agents get caught up in this 80 hours a week making very little money. Because what's happening is we wind up spending a lot of time in this administrative quadrant, and it's the least dollar productive. When generating business, being that listing specialist and buyer specialist is where we really should be. Okay, so there's 14 responsibilities. These are pretty, general. For the listing agent, it's finding business, generating the lead generation, attracting the business, the lead conversion. You've got the lead, now it's turning them into a listing. Administrative prep, marketing and exposure, presenting and negotiating, closing, and then post-closing activities. And then there's 7 vital ones for the buyer side, very similar. Finding it, attracting it, admin, showing it as opposed to marketing and exposure, writing and negotiating as opposed to presenting and negotiating, closing, and then post-closing. So very similar paths that they go down. Page 33 is the ancillary arms. And what they're saying in here is these are critical mortgage, and then 16 touch, 8 and 8 and 33 are marketing stuff, title, and inspection. Those are the 6 ancillary arms in your business. And in theory, these are the 6 ancillary arms you should not be touching, right? The mortgage side, the title side, and the inspection side, most of us get, right? It's our marketing plans, though. Sometimes we get too, I think you've got to understand your marketing plan, but as quickly as you can get out to delegate your marketing plan, the better. Because sometimes we get caught in our marketing plans, and we wind up not getting our marketing out because we got busy doing the real estate business at hand, it doesn't go out. So automating it and getting someone else to help implement it is the ideal situation, because it's relevant, right? It's important to our business and it's relevant because you've got to market. But again, it can always be delegated. 34 is an overview of the real estate organizational chart, right? This is who does what in the business. So there's an owner who hires the team leader, right? That's typically one and the same. And then on the left-hand side, you got listing specialist, listing coordinator. So the listing specialist actually does the appointments. Listing coordinator does the work it takes to get it from contract to closing, or from exposure to contract to closing, and then title company. On the far right-hand side is buyer specialist. There's a closing coordinator to mortgage company to inspection company. In the middle sits a marketing coordinator, administrative assistant, and then a runner, right? And if you understand what those tasks are and who needs to do what, you can actually start popping some of these things out, right? I mean, I think one of the easy ones to pop out, I think, is marketing. You know, I always look at, that's one of the things that gets in agents' way, and it's very important to make sure that they're getting themselves out there and exposed, is taking the marketing out of your hands. All right, page 35. So this is kind of a template, so you can mark this up, but I would say take a good half hour outside of class, read through this. This may not line up with exactly how you do your process, but I bet you it's pretty close. It's probably about 75% accurate. You may want to fill in some blanks. You may want to take some stuff out, but I think it's important to have a process of how you do your business and kind of the timeline of how it's done. This is broken down into, the first part is you need to generate the lead, right? You can't do any lead conversion or any post-closing until you have a lead, right? So what do you do to create a lead? Understand how you create leads in your business. The lead conversion, what do you do to convert leads? On the listing side, you know, you've got your pre-listing questions, right? I don't have any pre-listing questions. So that's why you need to come to the listing conversion class. Or if you need those, I can give you a sample. Every time someone calls in and wants to list their property, you should have a list of questions that you ask, the same questions every single time, right? And if you're, you know, if you're really good, you'll memorize it, but it's always good to have it on hand so you don't skip a question. Because sometimes I'll ask that great question about, you know, well, on a listing, I always want to know before going in, you know, do they have an idea of price? Have they already gotten an appraisal on the property? You know, I want to know if they're thinking this house is way overpriced or right on the market. So I've got a couple questions I ask to try to pull that out of them, right, before I go into the house. Because the last thing I want to do is stab in the dark. So that's one of the things on my questionnaire. And if it's not on your questionnaire, you sometimes may ask it, sometimes you may not ask it. But it can create issues in your business. Assembling the pricing tools, confirming the appointment, you know, it just walks you through all the things you need to do for the listing. And then the listing conversion, we go through steps 2 through 9 in the listing conversion course. Page 36, admin prep, marketing and exposure. And some of this marketing stuff we go through in the marketing momentum course. Again, it talks about just listed cards, calling neighbors, door knocking. You may do this, you may not do this to that number, so you put your own number in there, what you're going to do. But if you're not doing some of this stuff, I would challenge you to think about adding some of this into your marketing campaign. One thing I'm big on for marketing and exposure is like a pre-marketing campaign, a coming soon campaign, right? If you do that with your listings, you got to have it on a checklist, right? Because what happens is you don't want to show up, you know, 2 days before you're about to put the listing on the market and be like, oh crap, I forgot to do my pre-listing campaign, right? If you know it's part of your checklist, it gets done. Do you guys have a checklist in your business now? Okay, some yes, some no. Okay, now's a great time. Just take this as a template, walk through it. All right, and then here's the other part is the post-closing activities. So many agents, you know, NAR loves that. They always talk about that survey they did where 80%, something like 80% of the people were satisfied with the agent who they last bought a home from. Only 20 could recall that agent's name, right? Because we do a great job. We're awesome at that client service leg, but we don't follow up with them, right? Sometimes we get busy. Sometimes we're scared because it's like, oh crap, like I'm gonna call them and I know there's gonna be a problem, but anticipate it, right? Know that there's gonna be a problem. So this has like, mail a customer survey for the listing.
Let me ask you this,
Huh?
do you have customer surveys?
Do I have them?
Prepared customer surveys?
I don't.
Where do we get them? Do we have to create them ourselves?
I'm sure agents have them out there. You can ask on the dashboard.
Find it in, on Remax.net or under the design center. They have a lot of templates for tools. And if all else fails, just Google exactly what you just asked and make sure you tag real estate with it and somebody's created it.
But it's also a process. Like
It's the wheel, baby. It's
You know,
not new.
asking the client for a Zillow review,
Somebody did it before.
right? Asking client for a Zillow review. You can create one like in Mailchimp that'd be emailed out to your client. Get that survey. Okay, now switching gears. 47 vital buyer activities. Again, same kind of thing. Creates a template for things you should be doing in a buyer transaction. Again, 2 through 6 is that lead conversion. So we spend a whole course in the buyer conversion class going through 2 through 6. Administrative prep, showings, writing, negotiating, closing preparation, and then post-closing activities, right? All right, page 41. $13 productive activities. So ignore the outside columns, just look in the middle. And in a sense, this is like your daily ritual. So this starts from the highest dollar productive activity down to, out of the vital dollar activities, down to the lowest. So unless you're sitting at close, are you sitting at closing with a client collecting a check, right? If you're not, then move to the next line. So are you holding a deal together? Not hand-wringing over a deal over the last week. I'm saying actually working on a current active issue. Are you negotiating offers? Are you taking listings? Are you writing offers? If you're not, move on to the next one. Are you basically having a listing appointment? Do you have an A buyer in your car? Or do you have a buyer that you're working with in process? Then it gets down to prospecting, okay? Are you calling, viewing FSBOs? Are you calling, mailing expired listings? Are you holding an open house? Are you calling, mailing your network? Or are you calling, mailing your farm area? Basically, if you kind of stop at that line, whatever you're not, whatever you've gotten to, and then you work your way up. So if you're not doing any of those things, start at the bottom, start calling, mailing your farm area or network, or following up on your open house people. So it gives you kind of that productivity. Again, these are the most high dollar activities. So again, the prospecting area, this one you'll modify because it depends on your business model. It depends on the things you're going to drive at. If you're never going to do an expired, don't work on expireds, right? But there may be other avenues in your business you need to work on. Because what happens in your day is we wind up, what we start with is email, and then Facebook, and then email again, and then sometimes random phone calls, and then something that's on our desk, right? And we sometimes come into our business just very haphazard as to what we need to be doing. So if you kind of line up in your mind, you need to be doing the highest dollar productive activities first, and going from there. All right, page 42. So these are the 14 performance standards. These are performance standards you should know in your business. So on the left-hand side, LC is lead conversion, LG is lead generation. Same thing on the right-hand side, LC, lead conversion and lead generation. So you've got your transaction benchmark, right? Let's say it's 18 transactions, right? So you need to know number of listings sold that you want. Let's say I want to do a 50-50 business. Nine listings sold and 9 buyers closed. So listing side. To sell 9 listings, how many listings do I need to take? right? And in the past, you basically had a 90% success rate on your listings that you've taken to close. So listings taken would be 10, right? I need, based on the number of appointments I've done in the past, I'll need 15 listing meetings, right? Listing appointments to get 10 listings signed. So how many appointments do I need to set to get 15 listing appointments? Meaning I'm on the phone with someone, they say, yeah, come over on Thursday. So I'm pretty good at a show up rate. So let's say it's 16 sets to get 15 meetings or listing appointments. So how many talks do I need to do? How many people do I need to talk to actually get 16 opportunities where they say, yeah, come over on Thursday night? So that number may be 60, right? I need to talk to 60 people to get 16 sets. How many times do I actually have to pick up the phone, dial a number to get 60 people on the phone? That may be 120, right? So now I know basically to hit my goal, I gotta dial, to hit 9 listings sold, I gotta dial 120 people, right? You can do the same thing going down the list for your buyer side of the business. Let's say that's 122. So now I need to make 240 phone calls, right, throughout the year to hit my transactional benchmark of 18, right? So it helps you break down for the, kind of for your week, right? Let's say it was 520 because it's easy that way with 52 weeks. So now you need to have 10 phone calls a week to hit 520 phone calls, right? 52 weeks, 10 phone calls a week. And I've done the numbers, and I know that will get me to 18 transactions. It's just a simple way to break it down, as opposed to, holy crap, I got to make 520 phone calls. Where do I start, right? We'll start with making 5 days in the week, 2 phone calls a day, right? And then that will get you to your transactional benchmark. Your transactional benchmark is tied to your entrepreneur's mantra, right? Because you can't make $1 less than this. And the only way to make $1 more than that is to do 18 deals. So I can't not make 2 phone calls, right? Because what happens so many times is we have these goals in mind and we have these lofty aspirations, but they're not tied to anything. So it's 2 this week, I'll make them tomorrow, right? And now tomorrow you actually have to make 4 to make up the difference. And then it's like, well, something came up and I'll just, I'll do it tomorrow, right? I didn't feel like it today. But if you know it's tied to something concrete down the road, it really makes sense that you're an idiot for not making those 2 phone calls.
Well, calls are very mood driven. Like if you're not, I know you have to talk yourself into it to get in the right state of mind, but if things are going on and it's just not a good day, it's better.
Well, and then I think you got to pay, yeah, and that's where, again, if it's tied to something really strong down the road, then you've got to take your mood and decide, is this a temporary thing? Is this just me getting in the way of my own business? Because sometimes what happens is you will talk yourself out of doing certain things. It's just a lot easier not doing it than doing it. If it's going to be painful, right? Because growth is going to feel pain, right? So your body will sometimes make you feel sick before you're about to do something that is big. So you've just got to make sure that you've got something to bounce it off of. That, okay, at the end of the day, though, it's by not making 2 phone calls, I'm stopping myself from getting this big goal. That I know in my mind, this is what I really, 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 really want. So it's a way to try to help you get over the mental part of it. Because that's...
There's days that
Sometimes you have to think,
do
though,
it.
that it's a privilege to do the job, because if you don't look at it that way, then you kind of need to go out and get a job where there's a boss looking over your shoulder saying, I really don't give a shit how you feel today.
You're right.
This work needs to be done. So
Right.
And then the bottom of this page is 13 key conversion rates. The conversion rates will help you with the 14 performance standards. Understanding how many dials per talk, talks per set, sets per meeting, meetings per listing, on the listing side. So there's some numbers here you're going to start pulling up, but you got to track your numbers. I use this little black book when I make my phone calls. The dials I make, the conversations I have, the appointments I set, and then what, how that turns into actual closed transactions. So track
So you
this
write
stuff.
it in a book and then you put it in your computer?
Well, I look at it, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of go back and look at the month and just see how I did over the month, right? It took me, 40 phone calls to talk, or it took me 80 phone calls to talk to 40 people to create 2 appointments. I kind of get that pattern down. Then I know the next month, all right, if I know I need to have those 2 appointments, I got to make 80 phone calls. So I've got to block that time out. And it gives you those smaller goals that you can't control the results. All you can control is your actions. So if you understand kind of the actions you take and hopefully the desired results, it just gives you that ability to break things down into smaller pieces. All right, and then the last page, this gets into time management and activity management. So managing time is impossible. All we can do is manage our activities. So your business activities will fall into 4 categories at the bottom: lead generation, lead conversion, client care, and personal development. And that's it, really. So when you make these blocks in your calendar, lead generation needs to come first, because without lead generation, you can't convert a lead. And if you can't convert a lead, then you're not going to service a lead. What happens is we wind up doing it flip. We wind up doing a lot of client care first, right? And that winds up taking a lot more time. And sometimes we fill that void with client care, and it feels busy. It feels like we're working, but we're not really moving the needle and getting more people into the pipeline. So, all right, and that's it for the education part. The next is the appendix has tools, family budget, these are all the lines of a family income statement, family balance sheet, a business budget, business income sheet, business income statement, retirement needed template, and then a monthly payment calculator. So these are some tools you can use to kind of create that family and business budget, because understanding your expenses is a critical part as well. Any questions on this? It's a lot of ground to cover, and it makes your brain hurt a little bit. Yeah, and especially this time of year, hopefully to give you a couple ideas moving forward. All right, guys, thank you all very much for coming out. Yeah. Yes, sir.